The most important factor that will determine whether you get an investment banking offer or not is prior work experience. And now that recruiting happens so early as your sophomore year, the importance of internship experience has never been higher. As absurd as it sounds to be focused on getting a job already in your freshman or sophomore year, that's just the state of the game. That's how competitive these offers are, and that's how competitive you need to be if you want to stand out. So in this video, we're going to break down everything you should be doing in order to land that first finance internship. Your goal as a freshman or sophomore is to get a finance internship that has these three attributes. You want an internship that is going to expose you to business or finance. It's way too ambitious to only want hedge funds or private equity or venture capital firms. So you just want any kind of job that will expose you to business and finance in some capacity. As long as you're working with people who are relatively ambitious, who have a knack for finance, and you're touching some aspect of that business, then you're in a good spot. You can't ask for much more at the beginning of your career. The second factor is that this internship should have a track record of past interns going into finance. If it's a cool opportunity, but people don't actually end up breaking into finance, then it's probably still not the best fit for you. A weird example of this, I think some international opportunities are not viewed as favorably as domestic ones. So even though you might be working at a bank, sometimes it's better to stay domestically where your experiences won't be discredited. And the third thing is you want to target firms that have a loose recruiting process. I think it's pretty frustrating if you only go for these like Fortune 100 companies because all of the recruiting is done through web portals. A lot of your recruiting efforts won't be met with any real person, so it's not the best use of your time. So what kind of magical firms exist in this cross-section of attributes? Well, one that I've talked about before, and I'm going to keep talking about, are search funds. I think search funds represent maybe the best place to intern because they're often run by people who have IB or private equity experience. A lot of the times they need interns on the fly who are willing to do any kind of work, and you're getting a really real look into a deal process or managing a company. There's also a great deal of them. Every single year, HBS, Stanford, and Wharton are going to churn out at least 50 search funds, so you should start emailing them as soon as they graduate. Other really popular routes, I would say, are private wealth managers, really small hedge funds with one or two people, as well as merchant banks. I think that these are all very common kind of firms that people consistently go to and ultimately place into banking or consulting. So let's talk about the three phases of getting really any job. The first phase is research, and the first component is what I call running a careers precedent. So you want to look at people who had the exact same profile as you and then see where they ended up. You want to know what is in the realm of possible for someone in your position. So what this means is looking at the people who went to your high school, looking at the people who are in the exact same program as you in university, as well as the clubs you're a part of. How similar were your grades to them? If you want a specific award, or if you're part of some kind of club, see where the alumni from these foundations and these programs went on to do, because that gives you a base understanding for really what trajectory you're on. And if you don't like that trajectory, then you have to work backwards. Just like in a precedent transactions analysis in finance, you have to look at people with successful outcomes and see what they were doing. There's really not that much science to this. I would just go through LinkedIn, look at 50 to 100 profiles of people a couple years older than you, and track it in Excel. And why I think this is helpful is because it does a lot of the filtering data for you already. Rather than having to reach out and learn whether these firms even hire freshmen, you'll only be looking at companies that have a history of hiring freshmen or sophomore in the past. The next place I think is really logical to look is company databases. So you can check places like Crunchbase or H1B data to see who's hiring as well as who's raising funding. If a firm is continuing to raise new funds, or if it's a tech company and they've just done a round, then they're probably going to be very receptive to taking on new interns. So once you've done the research part, the next thing is to do outreach. And we've covered this pretty extensively in our cold emailing video, but I'll just break down the key highlights. You have to make sure that your resume isn't trash. The standard for a resume is not incredibly high. It just cannot be trash. You can't have spelling mistakes in your resume. It has to be formatted kind of within conventions to a reasonable degree, and you also need to make sure that you're articulating in pretty plain English. We do have a resume and cover letter course on our website, which does have my investment banking and private equity resumes if you're interested. Next on this checklist, you need to have some evidence of finance, interest, and experience. You can't just go from nothing to picking up a finance internship. You need to be part of some clubs, some kind of extracurricular, or some kind of article or other way to express your interest. You need to make sure that your cold email is professional and concise. If you're reaching out a lot and you're not getting a lot of hits, it's very possible that your cold email is a brick. People aren't actually reading it. So you need to make sure that it's skinnied down and maybe get an older mentor to review it for you. And lastly, you cannot forget this, you have to follow up within 2 weeks. You can't just send an email once, gotta make sure that you follow up again. The third thing is to impress employers. You need to be constantly building your own skills and improving your resume. Recruiting isn't just a single period that's going to happen. Even if you get the banking internship offer, you need to continue to work on your resume and your skills to make sure you're ready for buy-side recruiting or MBA programs. The journey in finance is pretty long, so you need to make sure you're constantly revisiting the stage, making sure that you're always working on ways to impress employers. As a student, I think there are 3 ways that you can easily improve your resume in the absence of work experience. Even if you're a sophomore, you can focus on a specific interest or niche that isn't already covered at your school. Something like cryptocurrency, emerging markets, private equity, or options could be something unique enough to get you that first internship. Something that's also very popular is writing finance research. A lot of people, even up to the MBA level, spend their time writing Seeking Alpha reports. I've honestly seen a lot of people who are trying to get into the hedge fund industry publish a lot of content on Seeking Alpha or on Reddit or Value Investors Club, and they're really just trying to get their reps in and getting some validation from people online. And the third thing, and I put this third because I honestly think it's less important than everything else we've talked about, but you could always get a certificate. Something like the CFA Level 1, one of the online classes at MIT or Harvard, or the Bloomberg Markets Concepts course. Something in this flavor that kind of just shows that you're a self-starter is going to help round out your resume. And the last step to do if you still can't find a job after doing all of this is to lower your standards. It is honestly pretty brutal out there. I didn't get a very relevant internship in my first year, so I can sympathize with people who are still struggling to get these kind of job offers. But if you offer to work online, or if you offer to work part-time or unpaid, then you can really open up the horizon of what's available. Rather than be on payroll, sometimes it's better if you just negotiate to be paid one lump sum for the entire summer. Sometimes if you say that you'll set up a scholarship program in which they award you amount of money, then that can be also a way around conventional salary amounts. So I think this does require a little bit of creativity, but by offering to work for unpaid, you can kind of create a lot of new opportunities and open more doors. I know it's not available for everyone, but it is a strategy that you can employ. So I hope this advice is helpful for you. I do think that the most important thing really is to identify the targets that actually hire interns consistently and just continue to reach out to them. And if you're feeling down on yourself because you don't feel like you're making very much progress, trust me, I've been there, and pretty much all my peers have been there too. But I would say that everyone who's consistently employed these strategies over the course of months and years and make it a habit have all broken into banking and consulting. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.